then get another one.
Unless you make conscious effort to sit down and learn.
Hello, welcome. My name is Kwabena Darko. Welcome. Today I want to share with you the importance of African education, or the importance of African history. History, they say, is the foundation of education. You cannot know yourself until you have some sense of history. And you cannot be proud as an African if the history you know as an African is shallow. And it's amongst all the education that you have to have as an African, I think the greatest of them is the knowledge of yourself, and that knowledge is built on the history that you know. That's why a lot of the times, if a person is very weak in history, you see that they say all kind of things. So growing up, you will hear that the Africans have never made anything. The Africans are inferior. Some people will even say that because of the complexities, Africans are cursed. All of it, they come from the fact that a lot of people have not taken themselves to study history beyond what the Europeans taught us. I say that if you want to stand as an African and be somebody who achieves a lot and happy and proud as an African in this world that almost everything, every institution, every knowledge, every content, it has been overshadowed by the white people and their biases, and so if you're an African, let's face it, the standard of human for the last 500, 600 years is the white man is the top and the African is at the bottom. They call something white superiority. If you have something which is superior and it happens to be white and everything that looks like white, then something which is inferior is squarely opposite that. And really, that kind of disease has affected almost everybody, especially Africans. So you have great Africans who have had European education and they don't have any self-value. And even if you put them in charge of any institution, you can see how they think and the things that they come up with. So, importance of African education. I happen to have had the opportunity to learn this years ago, and it centered my mind. It made me to feel proud as an African. Never had problem looking at the opportunities and the good things that our continent has. So you as an African, you are not cursed. You have to understand that you as an African, you are not inferior, and you as an African, you have dignity. If there is anything that they call original man, I think that is the African. A lot of the things that are close to us, the way we look, our minds, our culture, they are very much original. The others are derivatives of the African. So the history, the level of education that you have about your history decides the level of education you have about yourself. And self-knowledge is about the most important knowledge. So the greatness of your education cannot be devoid of the African history. And yet, when you go to school, a lot of the things that they teach us, they don't so much major on the importance of the education as Africans, devoid or which is outside what the Europeans brought. So you have to look for books that have been written by Africans, especially the Pan-African writers, and read the history, because I think that the extremity of the errors that the Europeans have promulgated, where everything else is accorded to them and nothing is accorded to the Africans. Before the Europeans came, even in the middle, in the midst of their coming, the time that they came, we still had great empires, great kingdoms, and before they came, we still had civilizations. But almost every history, they say that they came to civilize us, and it was a strategy they used. And unfortunately, the things that have come out of that kind of analogy has destroyed the minds of many Africans. So the African continent would have to describe as a very poor, backward continent, diseased. And the whole world, wherever you go, when you talk of Africa, those are the descriptions that they have. And that's why most people will come to Africa for the first time, and they are shocked of the things that they see, in spite of all the things that the CNN and BBC and all these great European institutions have promulgated over the years, And we still have a lot to learn as Africans. And so study. If you don't have that, I said that there are 4 things that if you want to build as an African. One is your knowledge or your education about your history as African, which is beyond what the Europeans taught and brought. through their school and their religion and their institutions. The other one is your level of knowledge of mathematics, of engineering kind of education, systems, things that will bring the best of your abilities of thinking. That kind of education is a key. Then the other one is your financial education. You need strong financial education. What we call wealth and how it is made, how it is structured, how it is built. And the other one is your business kind of education. It's key. So these four, if you're able to have a substantial level of education in these, you will never have problem to live as an African. You can add some other ones like family and health and maybe politics and things like that. But for me, these are the critical ones. And so you don't have to be, believe that you were taught in school. The engineering that they taught us, they didn't teach us any great African history. If sociology and all those, they don't. That's why when you complete school here, you think that the whole world is waiting for you but Africa. So that's why a lot of our people, you hear teachers want to move, doctors want to move, a lot of police people will call you and say that my mates, they want to move, they have some money, they don't want to stay here, military people. Much of it is not because there is difficulty or there are difficulties on the continent. Much of it is because they don't have any self-awareness of the very continent that they were born in. They don't have much knowledge about Ghana and their history. People will become great when they know their history. And no matter the difficulties, when your sense of history is strong, that's where you see opportunities in yourself and in your people and on a continent. That is how, because then you start to have confidence in yourself, and confidence is required for success. Confidence is required for risk-taking. Confidence is required for anything that you want to achieve. So that confidence will only come when you know yourself, when you have some level of history. And that's why great Africans are history students. Not the European history, but history students. So your sense of culture, your sense of the knowledge that you have as an African is your protection. It's actually your medicine. It protects you from the lies promulgated by the Europeans. So it's the medicine to the negativity. That's why any African country that you go there, the people just have some awareness of their culture. But the history beyond what the Europeans taught, which I call consciousness. There's difference between the African culture and African consciousness. Those who are conscious have deliberately studied the African history beyond what the Europeans taught. And they have studied their greatness, with data, so for the last 3,000 years, 4,000 years, 10,000 year history of the African. If you study that, then you'll be able to deal with the negativity and the lies from the Europeans. And you will not take our history from when the 14th, the 14th and 15th and 16th century that we had interaction with the European. Because the current world that you see, much of it is coming from that period that Europeans took over and lied mainly about Africans and wrote all kind of things. They never considered us as human beings, and they still don't. They still don't. You see how they killed Floyd in America is the same. If a people could just chain human beings and send them somewhere and treat them like properties, like animals, you think that data is not transferred to the current generation? It's never true. That's why a lot of white people struggle with this. Very few of them are very much aware of this and trying to heal it. But in their consciousness, they think that we are not at the level that they are. Most. Those who are running all these institutions around the world, that is it. So they don't see us as full human beings because of how they treated us. And those are coming from the lies that their forebears taught to them. Racism is actually an institution that is built on white supremacy. And racism is a system that is built to promote a particular race in terms of wealth and property. And no other race don't deserve that. And that's why you can see it in all institutions. Look at businesses that are owned around the world. Look at the global institutions and who are the people heading all these institutions, because the white man has always thought that he is the only one that deserves everything. All other ones are not wise. Even population control, beneath it is that if they don't lead the world, all other ones don't have the wisdom to lead the world. And very few white people understand that we are all humans. Many of them think that they are the only humans. Every other one does not deserve any better treatment. So study your history, study your culture, Study the history beyond what the Europeans taught you. You know, you have to liberate yourself from colonization of the mind. You know, what they teach you in church, what they teach you in school, you should always have two eyes to see. Is this supposed to liberate me as an African, or is it supposed to make me as a slave? Because they're enslaving. If you go around the world and you go to anywhere that the Africans are working, you can see that systematically the Africans have been placed at the bottom. Go to England, look at the work that the Africans are doing. Go to America, majority of our people, look at the work that they do. It's at the poor level. And even go to universities and see the courses that they're reading. Go and look at global funding channels and look at how many of them they will give to the Africans. And I say that if you want to live in this world as an African, you must study the history. And once you study the proper African history, you become very much strong and positive and optimistic and hopeful. And your language will change about Africa and about yourself. You start to accept yourself, and you start to accept all the difficulties that your people have gone through, you know. And until you study this history, there's not much that you can appreciate about Africa, because all that you're seeing they are designed to put you down and to make you feel inferior. You know, they are designed to put you down to make you feel inferior. That's why you can see a section of the Africans in America say that I have nothing to do with Africa. If Africa were to be very, promoted as it is, very rich continent with intelligent people, strong heritage, none of them will ever say that I'm not an African. They would want to, because the same people would love to travel to England, travel to Paris, travel to all these countries, because they think those are civilized countries, prosperous countries. But when it comes to Africa, they say that those people, I don't want to have anything to do with them. Some of them will even say that we sold them. Much of it is not true. A lot of our people went to war, from especially the north, and the people that they captured, because they were preventing the Arabs. Don't forget that the Arabs had been here for at least 1,000 years before the Europeans came, and so they were preventing them from destroying the tribes in the north. And so those that they captured, they sold them, some of them, to the Europeans. And the Arabs also sold a lot of Africans to the Europeans as well. And even if they accuse some of the yes, of course, there are some tribes involved, and we will not deny that. But the machination, the structure, the whole institution was not run by Africans. The whole institution was run by Europeans. It was an invasion. It was a war. They wanted to take over the continent and destroy everything that we had and destroy us. And that agenda has been ongoing all these years, and that's why they had to rewrite the history to make them say that they stopped slavery. They didn't stop slavery. We fought them. We fought them, and some of them, their finances had run out. They say that their institutions, if they did, look at how they are trying to promote. They say that equality through gayism and stuff like that. But look at the energy they put in ending racism. Is it that strong? No, it's not that strong. Why? Because it works in their favor. And so you as an African must study, read, research. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not inferior. You've just been taught wrongly. And that's why you have a lot of questions. And that's why you're blaming your leaders. You say that leaders are corrupt and all that. Every time you are saying you're using any time you get up, look at the words that you use on yourself as an African. You look at the words that you use on your people, and you will see whether you are free or you are still in bondage to this matrix. The moment you are taught rightly, you start to see well. Study the Benin kingdoms, the Songhai kingdom, the Ghana empire. Study even ancient African history, from Nubia to Egypt, to all those areas, to Zimbabwe, to the Zulu people. Study the Ashanti people. Study the Igbos, the Kikuyu. Study the Intabeles. Every one of the African tribes had their own greatness. Somebody said that we came to teach you how to write. Study how writing came into being. You will never say that again. They came to teach you how to speak and to civilize. No, a lot of it is not true. They played their part, but even the part that they brought was designed to make us never to build anything for ourselves, and to always to look up to them as the ones that lead. That was the kind of education that they brought. It's like somebody trying to offer you medicine, but putting something that will eventually destroy you in it. That medicine may work in the interim, but eventually it was designed to take you out gradually. And that's the kind of institutions that they brought. And that's why we are trying to find ourselves. Look at democracy, for instance. You think democracy will develop Africa? Look at the legal education that they brought. You see our lawyers. You think that they can develop Africa? Look at the religion. You see where it has gotten to. Because the interpretation were not for the upliftment of the African. It was for the subjugation. It was not built on love and truth and dignity as God's people. It was for you to look at somebody to say that he is God. That's why when you go to church, you see the picture of Jesus there. Why have they not put in the black man there to say that he's Jesus? But when they are putting the devil, or you see the picture in the devil, that's why when we were growing up, all the movies, the heroes were not black. If you see any African in it, he's a cleaner or he's a slave. It was they programmed those to make us see ourselves as inferior, and that was the whole agenda. That these people are not humans. We have the best of minds. Well, the problem is the data on it. So the moment you correct the data on the mind of the African is unstoppable. The moment you educate the African rightly is unstoppable. And you will not have to doubt that if you stay in Ghana, you will not prosper. Because then the right education, you are equipped with the right education. So the importance of history will make you be proud of yourself. History, the right African history, will make you see the lies that you've been told. You've been programmed to hate yourself, and you may not even know it. You've been programmed to fail, and you may not even know it. The moment you find the history, you will see it in business, you see it in immigration, you will see it in religion, in Islam, in church. You will see it everywhere. And you see, all the history that we've been taught is to blame your people, blame yourself, and say that they came and they exonerated and lifted you and made you prosperous. You will change that assertion and say that no, these guys were not for our best interest. And even if you're a white man, it's the same. You were taught that you are superior to everybody else, and that's a lie. So you've not been taught the right history as a white man as well. Europeans don't know much history. They just follow a system that was designed to subjugate everybody. But many of them, that's why they react when they see others. That's why they react when somebody is trying to say that this is not how it is. The Arabs are the same. The other day I was watching something and somebody was saying that the people who built these pyramids, many of them were not white skinned. They were dark skinned, and you could see the way the Arabs there are very much angry. Say that go and learn your history. But everything shows, even scientifically. If you look at the current human, anybody who looks like me, for the last 300,000 years, there was nothing like any other race but the dark-skinned race. And then 70,000 years ago, the others started to move out of Africa, and they started to change because of different climatic conditions. So we are all one human race. One human race. All of us evolve from the African. And that is scientific, that is true. That is scientific interpretation of what we have. And they have done major research to support this. Before, they were saying that, these ones are inferior, but now they know. So they call some things Lucy. Go and look for that. They will see. So many things that we have to learn as Africans to have the right sense of history, so that we can be proud of ourselves, and so that we can use that pride to build ourselves and to build our people and to build our continent. If anybody wants to subjugate you, they will teach you wrong history. That's why you can always change a people's mind about themselves if you change their history. That's it. And if you don't know where you come from, it's hardly that you'll be able to get to where you want to go. And the future is predicated on the past. There's no way that tree will be that tall without deep root. Strong buildings have strong foundation, and history is that foundation. So once you learn the right history, so when you are in the university, those of you in the university, you are studying physics, computer science, and all those, without proper African history, you have no education. You will not be able to be proud of yourself. You will not be able to, even if you become the president of our country, you will mess up, because then your education, you become a subordinate. Because then you think that somebody will say, that's why Obronini here, wait, that's why the white man created. I said, no. Go and study your history. A lot of these scientific creations are coming from all races. Africans included, Asians, Indians, Europeans included. But you see, when people have the control over the institutions that were doing patents, for instance, institutions that were doing funding, marketing, global sales, were being run by white people, then they will put their name on everything and tell you that they had nothing. The Africans in America, for instance, did a lot. And many of the things that they did were destroyed. Study that. The Africans on the continent did a lot. When the Europeans went to Kumasi, for instance, Kumasi was developed. They bent a whole city down. There were structures that the Ashantis had built. Story buildings with toilet inside. Go and study. And you can see it in almost every tribe in our continent. Go to the Gomba and study your history and see. Go to the Gan people. Go everywhere. You will see that we're great people. It's just because somebody decided to teach you a history that will make you feel like you're nothing. And therefore you have accepted to say that we didn't achieve anything. And you can see, Leonard, my friends, some of my friends, very highly educated. But anytime that they are talking about Africa, you see that he's ignorant. And that is an area, if that you're not strong. And that's why they were always trying to fill that with religious and Bible knowledge. That will not solve that. The history, what you need to study, will not solve that. The Bible is also a history book. You can trace a whole content on Africans in the Bible. So everything that you pick, you can see that so many things have been hidden from you, and that's why you're confused. The moment you get the right history, you will never be confused as an African. You will never feel inferior as an African. You'll be proud of yourself. You'll be proud of your language. You're proud of your name. You will name your children differently. You will not worry if you don't wear suit and tie. You will stop the bleaching, and you stop even the weaves. Why? Because then you have content. You have contest. You have it. You say that no. Now you can explain a lot of things to your benefit. So my name is Kwabena Darko. Today I'm talking about the importance of African history. The importance, you need that. With all your education, if you don't have the history, you're useless. That's why you can have financial knowledge, you can have all the other ones, and you still feel frustrated to live in Ghana because the history is weak. And I'm saying that from the TV to school to churches and mosque, you've been trained not to accept and be proud of yourself as an African. And that even those of you who did history in our universities, that history, much of it was designed to promote the white man, not you. And so I don't read a lot of the history that just starts from slavery and colonization. I read history beyond that, and I read history from the Africans. So you want to read history books from Sheikh Anta Diop. You want to read from Chancellor Williams. There are a lot of video content on YouTube about great African historians. Study them. Robin Walker. My friend Obi has written a great book which is Rebirthing the African Consciousness. Go and search for it. Dr. Arikana Chiomborikwa has a great book on African history. There are so many. Dr. Molefi Asante has History of Africa. Read them. Read them. They will bring your mind into the center. You will move from just hailing and worshiping the others and vilifying and looking down upon your people, And so my name is Kwabena Darko. I want to say thank you very much for taking your time to watch this, the importance of African education. Thank you very much.